So how do I look at the case studies? I simply say that case is a description of a situation someone in an organization or an institution faces. Good cases, especially I think the cases which are having a very good and strong dilemma, they enable participants to put themselves in the shoes of an actual decision maker, right? And that I think that's the most important learning which is happening in the case study, that students get into that mindset and they make the decision accordingly. Typically, I think you can use case studies to increase the understanding of theory and also to connect theory with application. And I think you can also use to get practical insights and wisdom in that case. I think a good case study, it should have a contemporary topic, relevant and important issue. It must have some controversy, right? Introduce attention between the different alternatives which are available. But here I would like to say that I was doing a review for an Emerald Journal. There was someone who was trying to bring too many issues in the same case study. Right? So I think, yes, it's good to have tension with alternative courses of action, but don't make it too complex by adding too many things at the same time. Right? I think I suggested that person to think about making it into two case studies instead of one case study having all those complexities. A good case study highlights multiple viewpoints from a range of perspectives. Right? That's what I was saying earlier. Primary one or two core issues, right? Complex, but not too complicated in that case. A good case study, from my perspective, should have ambiguity, right, to generate multiple options, and then students can discuss it accordingly. Yes, when you're discussing the finance cases, yes, you can surely have different perspectives. Most of my marketing cases, in case they are, you have submitted a case in 2021 and the case is having a background 2018, many times those cases have a lower chance of acceptance, but that is not the case with finance cases. In addition, a good case study must have a compelling storyline, right, and a clear teaching objective. Compelling storyline so that you can sustain discussion in the class, right? We are using the case study for 80 minutes. There are a few case studies of mine which I use over a period of 6 sessions, right? So I give it to students in the second or third session, and then the next 5-6 sessions are based only on that particular case study. So you should have that type of a storyline in that case. Data to tackle, not to solve the problem, is one thing which you should keep in mind. Many times people give complete data in the case itself, right? And teaching out is just more about the facts coming out of the case study. Well structured, easy to read without grammatical errors is another thing which you have to keep in mind. So they already have seen the case studies. I will not spend too much time here. So I have a case study, Serva Pharmaceuticals in Cambodia. This was my consulting project. So the content of this case study, it's more about, we're talking about the company background, which is sales and marketing, and then distribution and promotion, and then the future expansion plans of this company. I have a case study about the same company where they're thinking of entering into Myanmar, right? Then we are coming into Serva Pharma Cambodia. What is happening here in Serva Pharma Cambodia? They have some issues which are happening in their marketing unit. The company is profitable. They're doing very well otherwise, but Serva Pharma's marketing unit is pulling the profitability of the whole company, not only the Cambodia market, but of the whole company. And then there is a section on John Tyang, who is the country head for Serva Pharma Cambodia. Right? So we have discussed all things in this case about what is happening. The sales rep, they are promoting easy to sell, low profitable products. And other thing is, other pharmaceutical companies are having around 20 to 25 products, but Serva Pharma is having around 53 products in its product portfolio. Right? Too many products, no clear customer segmentation. So all these things are mentioned when we're talking about Serva Pharma marketing. Then, in case I discuss this case study without getting into the pharmaceutical industry in Cambodia, one may say that, okay, it's not profitable. The distribution unit is profitable. Distribution unit is like this, that this company is also having a distribution arm. They procure medicines from India, and then they simply sell those medicines to distributors, and distributors sell it in the market. In this case, the company is getting around 20% margins, and that's pretty good in that case. But in case you look at the pharmaceutical industry in Cambodia, it's growing. It's having a good future prospects. So that's what it is coming from the pharmaceutical industry. And then we have discussed about the challenges faced by the company, whether it's customer segmentation, whether it's sales leadership, and other things. So these are the 5 questions which we are asking in this case study. But for John Tan's critical failures with control the face, right? What are the possible implications? I always feel proud about this case study because it was written more like a consulting project. But then, we are talking about the failures, and then we're talking about the implications. Second thing is all about how they can restructure their product portfolio from 53 to around 20. And then, this company is considering many actions at the same time. So then we're talking about what can be a starting point. So in this case, because it was a consulting project, we are talking about teaching what is more about prioritization. What is something which I can do at low cost, at low risk, and also high priority. Then we have done something like this for all the actions possible in that case. And then fourth question is more about their sales strategy and how it can align it with the marketing strategy. And then we're talking about the other possible strategies to turn around the company. Second case study, which I would like to say here is Janta Packaging. On one hand, I finished this case study along with Professor Rakesh Singh at IMT Ghaziabad in around 12 days. The owner of the company, again, was a student at IMT Ghaziabad, a gold medalist. He's very helpful in that case. So I think he gave us good amount of information. The case study it's also bestseller case study at Harvard Business Publishing. So what is the content of this case study? We're talking more about the company background, Indian packaging industry, glass bottle industry. This case study is more about key account management. So what's happening in this case study? It's like this. Janta Packaging is giving glass bottles to many companies, including Patanjali, Viva, many other pharmaceutical companies, Cavenders, in case you drink their juices. They also have the bottles from Janta Packaging. Now they have one client. This client is giving them around 15%, 15% of their business. But what is happening in the last few years, this client is taking the company for granted. They give them very big orders, like 50 million at one time, but they ask for immediate delivery, longer payment terms. Right? So all these things are happening and low profitability. And what's happening at this point of time? At the same time, the company is having orders worth 90 million from other customers with 10% profitability, and this order with around 7% profitability, immediate delivery, and longer payment terms. So this case is more about key account management. We have changed the name of this company. The company is a very leading company in India. So Dipankar asked me to change it to SF Foods so that the company is disguised. And then we're getting into the dilemma. So this case study, I'm using it in my CRM course. Rakesh is using it to the B2B course. So it's more about glass bottle industry, CRM practices, key account management. You can divide your case setting process into these 6 steps, starting with the idea, then getting into the planning, writing, trying, reviewing, and finally going for the publication. So more about idea generation. You can always identify case leads to newspapers, to online information, whatever is available, class discussions. In fact, one of my case study, which is published on Dove, I think it was way back in 2014 or maybe 2013. Yes, 2014. My student team at IMT Ghaziabad during Marketing Management 1, they proposed that Dove should launch baby care products. So we converted that thing into a case study. We submit that to IB, but we could not get it published with IB because IB was saying that we need to have at least one news item which says that Unilever is actually considering of coming up with a baby range of Dove. But that was all our hypothetical proposal. So we were lucky enough that we could get this publication with University of Michigan. But I must say that 2017, Dove came up with their baby care range. So, but we did it in 2014 itself. Yes, so class discussions. I've written many case studies with my students, and I'll say that they have some very good ideas. They just need some hand holding to convert it into a good case study. Interviews. I was just telling you that my HPL publication, it happened because of having a beer with a friend and asking him about the problem which he is facing. Yes, many times you can also observe the things around you. Once you're done with this thing that, okay, this is something which I want to write on, uh, you need to, I think, collect as much information as much possible about that particular topic so that you can convert it into a good case study. Because many times when you are writing a case study from a secondary sources cases, uh, if sufficient information is not available, uh, your case can be weak in many cases. I'll discuss about one case which took lots of time to really get into a stage where we can see the publication happening in maybe a month or so. Sources of leads, these are all can be published sources, right? Newspapers, credible websites, knowledge resource centers. That's what we call our library here, right? Disguised cases. Some of my cases are disguised, but they were actually the primary research cases, field research cases, where I started writing the case study with a particular company, with a particular person, but over a period of time, this person left the company, and I could not get the necessary permission from the company to take the case study forward. So ultimately, I have to disguise the case study in that case. But when you're disguising the case study, we will ask you to disguise it from many perspectives, change the place, change the number of people, data, and everything from that perspective, so that nobody can get an idea about the actual company in that case. Right. Field research. Yes, field research is challenging because you have to go with many things which are being asked by the company people. But yes, my record with the field research cases is almost 100% as compared to my record with the secondary cases, which may be around I'll say 80 to 90% in that case. Right? So field research cases are surely very rewarding, and you also get lots of information. There's a good learning experience also when you talk with the company people. Right now, I'm writing case study on Nestle Philippines. So the MD of the company is involved. So there's a professor from IMD Lausanne who is involved. My president is also involved. So I think I am learning a lot when we are discussing these things. So we have 45 minutes to 1 hour meeting with these people from different places. Good amount of learning experience. Next step is you have to go for planning the case study. In this case, you have to select the content area and the case topic. Now this can be from marketing, HR, finance, strategy, general management, anything from that perspective. What I do in my case is typically like this. In case my competence is more about marketing, and we're writing a case study which is having a combination of marketing and HR, I typically request a colleague from HR to join me and write a case study from that perspective. I think I have written 2 or 3 cases with Professor Bindu Gupta at IMT, Geeta Mishra at MIT, because they are the people who bring that HR perspective. So I'm not a competent person in terms of HR strategies, but these are the people who are competent. So they bring that knowledge. And I feel that in case you're trying something like this, it's always better to have another author from the other area who can competently. I think Gagan has done his PhD more about pricing strategy. In one of the case study, I think it's Gagan's answer when we are talking about the pricing perspective. Once you have planned the things, I think you have to move into the writing process. So writing process starts with collecting as much information as possible with the further research from the company, from the secondary sources. What I do in my case nowadays is I develop a caselet with a learning objective. In case I have classes, I simply try that thing in my class. And I will also stress that when you have started writing your case study, you can, I will not say that you have your complete teaching note running parallelly, but my suggestion is that it's always better to have some idea about what you are going to put into your teaching note. So once you're done with your caselet, which is a 1-pager or a 2-pager, you can simply write a short teaching note along with it. And then you can go for a trial in the class. I'm just showing you one of my caselet. Okay, I think the case study, please make it sure that you're writing your case study in past tense. I was talking about the recent review which I did for Emerald. In this case, this author or authors, they were moving from present tense to past tense, right? So it was totally, incoherent from that perspective. Other thing is identify and establish an issue or a problem which you can use to teach or explore a concept or theory. So in case you go back to my previous thing here, this case is more about break-even analysis, pricing strategy, and then we also talk about customer management, which come in picture. In case you sell towels at this price to one customer, what about to other customers like Walmart, to whom you're selling it at around 247? The opening paragraph, you know, yesterday I was having session for my students at AIM orientation program session for case studies. So we are simply telling them that, when you're skim reading the case, give good amount of time to the introduction of the case and the concluding part of the case, right? That's where you can get a good idea, a good feel about the case study. So the opening paragraph should make it clear who is the main protagonist of the case, who is the key decision maker, at what is the issue or the problem happening there, when did the case take place, more about the timelines, where did it take place, which organization, and then why a particular problem came into the body of the case. The body of the case gives you an idea about the whole story. You should try to follow the chronological order in that case. It will have company's background, industry, customers, details of specific issues. You can have challenges coming to picture here. Please make it sure that you're telling more than one side of the story. So you have to keep that neutral theme when you're writing the case study. As a case writer, we should not take the sides. It does happen when I'm looking at some of the case studies during the review process, that there are people who simply, in the case itself, they are pushing for a particular decision. So that may not be a good approach in that case. We typically say that there's not a right or a wrong answer to the case analysis. It's more about the approach which you follow to do the case analysis. Concluding paragraph is again important, right? So you can think about having a short synthesis of the case. What are the main issues? You can surely, I do bring some of the teaching note questions in a different manner in the concluding part itself, so that students know that, okay, after reading the case study, these are the possible things which they might have to consider. Right? Surely this part can have a linking with the opening paragraph, but sometimes I have seen that, there are, again, the recent case study. So in this case study, the authors are talking about that the MD of the company is looking at the sales figures, but in the exhibits, there's not even a single sales figure is happening. Right? No sales data, no financials of the company. So I think he's being recommended to go for a major revision. So exhibits, most of the case publishing houses, they ask for the exhibit at the end of the case study. Yes, there are two journals who put the exhibits in the text itself. You can talk about financial data, historical information, geographical details. I was talking about pioneer case study. So in that case, we are having one map of India, because in case someone is reading a case study in the Philippines or in the Switzerland, this person doesn't know where where Chhattisgarh is, where Nagpur is. So they need to know the locations by looking at the map of India in that case. The exhibits are typically numbered, exhibit 1, exhibit 2, and then most of the publishing houses, they ask you to not explain the exhibit. It's just like this. You are writing about the sales figure of the company and then see exhibit 1 instead of refer exhibit 1 for the complete financials of the company.
Thank you, Professor Puri, for this insightful presentation and allowing me to speak for a few minutes. And thank you, Professor Meenakshi and Professor Lakhnath, for hosting this session. And well, I have known Professor Puri since my MBA days, when he taught me several subjects at Thapar University. And needless to mention, it was always a pleasure to be part of his classes. Then fortunately, later on, I was in touch with him, and later on, we ended up collaborating 5 cases for IV publication. Well, more or less, Professor Puri has covered everything. I do not have much things to add. But still, I will just share my case writing ride. How do I think? Well, I select the potential project, and hopefully, it may be useful for someone. I mean, well, my journey to case writing goes back to 2010, while I was a second year student doing my MBA. Well, I requested one of my professors, Professor Neeraj Pandey, who later on became my PhD guide, to help me experience a live consulting assignment. So I moved to Mumbai and to assist him in that consulting assignment for SME. And so after we completed that project, my professor threw an idea of documenting the entire problem in the form of case study. So he told me, like, I categorically remember the way he put it, like, you had been reading and analyzing the cases, now let's come on the other side of the table and start writing it. That, how do you feel about it? So that was a day when my passion for writing case studies, you may say, that got ignited. After that, after completing that, I moved back to my hometown, and so I'm from Ludhiana, and it's a hub of small medium enterprises. So over a period of time, I built up contacts for and selected 10 industries, different industries, let's say automobiles, bicycle, and pursued them for over 2 years, and we were fortunately in successfully completing those 10 case studies, and we gave it a shape of the book that was later accepted by Pearson. So that was my first hit with the cases, and we were fortunate that the book was liked by Professor Vijay Govindarajan. So that was kind of a rare and memorable moment. um, then in 2013, I joined my PhD, and my journey from writing standalone cases with Ivy and other publication houses got started, and that's where I again got in touch with Professor Puri, and that I showed him my interest, and he was already on that thing, and he helped me moved into that. I mean, sharpen my skills a much better way. So since then, around from 2013, writing a standalone cases for Ivy and other publication houses. I mean, I have around 16 cases right now, 14 with Ivy and 2 with ISP lately. So as Professor Puri mentioned, I also write both primary and secondary cases. So when I select a case study, I mean, apart from thinking on a big name, let's say writing for a Google, or writing for a big thing, that's very important to gather the audience, to get the attention of an audience. But from my review process, some of my experiences, what I learned is that apart from the big name, the it's very important, or the reviewers, they give highest priority to what you are trying to teach to the class. Basically, they call it as a learning objectives, right? So if it is new, that already catches the attention of the review and the process. So that's how I look at it. When I select a potential project, that what I'm gonna teach this to my class. Like last year, I can give you, from last 2 years, I can give you one example. Like, well, while I was teaching at JGLS and other schools of JGU, I mean, I wanted to change my course manual of marketing management for law school students, and to make it more contemporary, right? So I kind of, I wanted to incorporate how these new age technologies, like robots, AI, and smart services, for example, are impacting marketing strategies or organizations. So that's why where my interest grew in last 2 years, where I've been working. So I wanted to incorporate that in my course manuals, right? So I kept on exploring the potential cases that I can write on it, I can map, I can teach in my class. And my things were already going on in my mind, that I have to do these cases. And I was on a trip to Edinburgh, Scotland, and I came across a retail chain, Margiotta, that they implemented a robot, and within a week's time, the robot was fired. So I felt it very interesting to teach in the class, that how this new age technology such as robots impact the customer service and the marketing management. So I followed up with that retail chain that showed my interest. Various things happened. So but I felt that the learning objective was very interesting, that they are trying to employ we always see a bright side of these new age technologies, right? AI coming in, robots coming in. There's always also a dark side that so I wanted to highlight that thing, that I want to teach that in class, that though there is a brighter side, there is always also a negative side to it. And so I felt that that learning objective was very interesting, that an organization employs a robot, and after 10 days of time, the robot was fired because it was unable to deliver the customer service. And very interesting thing was, the employees were the at the retail chain, they actually developed the notion of love with the robot in just one week's time, 10 days time. And they actually literally cried when the robot was fired. So that was something very interesting. There are a lot of theoretical concepts I wanted to teach in the class, like parasocial relationships, theories, and those things. So I followed up that. My mind was already there. So a change in the course manual actually helped me open my eyes that I need to bring this in the form of case study so that I can make my class interactive. So suddenly a lead came, I mean, during my, like, let's say, personal visit to the Scotland. And then I followed up, and eventually we got successful in publishing that case study. And similarly, I was like in other instance, like I was very intrigued with the idea of this new concept of conversational commerce. I mean, some of you, I mean, most of you, I'm sure in this audience must have known about it, the idea of conversational commerce, and how this new technology. And suddenly I came across a news item that shows that Walmart tried to enter into this conversational commerce space, and in 10 days, in 10 months time, I mean, they had to exit the business. So that was again a very interesting lead kind of I developed, and we were trying to, and there was another very good learning objectives hidden behind it. So we thought of developing it that in the form of case studies. I mean, there are a lot of like these examples, like Professor Puri was mentioning about leads, right? So I mean, a lead, I mean, what do I say? I mean, I still remember. I mean, uh, on one of our cases on Maggie. I mean, back in my PhD days. I mean, Nestle Maggie. That's actually yesterday. It featured in the annual bestseller list of Ivy. So I remember when I convinced my guy to write on this case on Maggie. I mean, we had been following that news for so long that when Maggie was recalled back, right? That we kept on following that news for a long time, and we saw that there is Maggie will have a challenge of repositioning that product. It will give us insights out how Maggie should relaunch the product. So we tried to carve the learning objectives around that story, and I think it's right now doing the case is actually well acknowledged by the audience. I mean, and last, my, let's say, recall with Professor Puri's, I mean, the one we collaborated on Coke Zero. I still remember we had a discussion that that how Coke also rebranded. I mean, all of you would recall that couple of years ago, the different colors of the Coke cans was made homogeneous. Like every can is now red in color with a slight demarcation on the upper edge. So I still remember we had a very thorough discussion on that project, and we conceived the idea that there is a clear kind, very good learning objectives hidden behind it, and Professor Puri guided me on that to kind of take through that project, and we also were successful in that publishing that case study. So, well, to conclude, I mean, let's say based on my experience, my recommendations to, I mean, my colleagues, I see a lot of my colleagues from JGU, I mean, uh, already in the on the audience list. So, I mean, my recommendation is just be that you should look for the learning objectives that you are trying to teach in the class. Explore both primary and secondary leads. I mean, I have successfully converted the lead on a flight also. Somebody sitting next to me, he was a CEO of the organization. We are still yet doing that case, but that's how I keep your eyes open. You will certainly get a successful. Write an email to the CEOs. I have written, I don't know how many emails to CEOs, right? I am certain in most of the cases, they see value in your proposal. It has worked very well for me, and I'm sure it will work well for you. Well, to my last recommendation to my sorry, there's yeah, to my last recommendation to, let's say, my, I mean, colleagues who are yet to hit the job market, I mean, who will soon hit the job market. Like when I was about to enter into the job market, I prepared couple of subjects that I would be interested to teach. Let's say pricing was my PhD on, and I wanted to teach a course on pricing, and that's I teach in law school, JGLS, like pricing of services or those things, right? So I saw that there was a lot of scope in the that pricing cases can be developed. So I literally prepared one slide, one lecture, and then I tried exploring, can I build up a case study for that presentation. So that's how I built my portfolio. I mean, that's all. I mean, that's my sincere advice to the early. I mean, the to my PhD students who really want to hit the job market soon. That your ideas also emerge from your interest, research interest. Like I was a lot interested in understanding innovation resistance, like long time back. People talk about adoption of innovation. Like there is another end of a spectrum. They talk about resistance. That Apple Watch, for example. That's my second bestseller case. That's on a IV. That's saying that that people showed resistance towards Apple Watch. How do Apple can use marketing to remove that resistance. So that's, I mean, that lead, I got it from the research interest. I mean, that's moreover the good thing what I learned from my case writing, right, was it gave me a hands-on practice to write something. I made an in my early days, I made ensure that I write 2 to 3 lines each day before I go to sleep. I mean, that's how I started, and my experience. So I'm in law school. I mean, at JGU, and my experience. The first time I taught case studies in law school, I was kind of taught marketing at a law school. I had apprehensions that I had students clearly saying that they have very limited interest in the marketing subject, and trust me, this methodology of when you write your own case study, when you take your own case study in the class, it gives you so much confidence, and it helps you really change the mindset of the students. I have had students in my class who bluntly told me they don't have an interest in pursuing management subject in a law school, and but one of the students eventually, the case studies grew his interest, and he ended up one of my co-authors in one of the case studies that is under review. So it can really, change the perception. And I think that's an excellent methodology. And if you have your own cases, nothing like that. It gives you so much confidence, so much conviction in the class. And that's actually, it has certainly made me a slightly better teacher. I would certainly say that. I'm not perfect, but last thing, I think the caution kind of I have learned while writing a case study is like when you are, let's say, interviewing someone, it's like you are asking where is a locker in your room. Like case study writing is like that, where is locker in your room. And people may have apprehensions. Like I used to write cases on pricing, but the in if you in the first meeting talk them, ask them about financial figures and big things about pricing and costing, they kind of get an apprehension. That's my experience. So I always moved slow, from a broader topic, and eventually carved out to, let's say, pricing, costing, that you build up your trust and confidence, and then I'm sure organizations are willing to share their uh, thoughts on that. But I would just say that thank you, Professor Puri, for inviting me, and it is always a pleasure listening to you. And my sincere advice is I would certainly recommend everyone to at least give a try to start writing these case studies. It's an excellent thing. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Gagan. Thank you very much. In fact, even the topic of the case study becomes very important many a times. Gagan, do you want to say something about Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which we could not get published?
Yeah, that was, I mean, we wanted to do a case on that, how the perception on that can be. I mean, I don't want Puri sir, if you remember, I mean, you were not part of that project, but you guided me on that project on Make in India. There was another campaign that similar to Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So title, I mean, of course, I mean, it has to highlight, it has to be catchy, it has to be, I mean, it has to be catchy, undoubtedly, but Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, yeah, I still remember we wanted the learning objectives wanted to revolve around something about changing the mindset, creating the more awareness. And if I'm not wrong, it's slightly back, sir. You can add if you.
A short summary of the case study, what is there in the case, what are the possible, dilemmas which are happening in the case. Then you have to move into the teaching audience, whether it's for MBA undergrads or executive management courses, and then learning objectives, which I think Gagan just emphasized. Then you have to get into session time, right? How much time you're going to give to different questions or different topics which you're going to discuss along with that case study. Suggested readings around 3 to 4, so that you know the faculty who is using your case can also recommend student to read those suggested readings. So what is happening in many colleges or institutes which are typically the case method colleges, like we are here at AIM. So the good thing which is happening here at AIM is our students, they read the case study, they also read the suggested readings. I'm lucky to have students like that here, right? And then they are trying to bring their learnings of the reading into the case analysis, and that's the purpose of having those readings. Right? And then your case discussion questions, that has to be challenging with the possible answers for those questions, right? If possible, IB and other publication houses, they do ask for this thing, that what actually happened, because there are many students who simply ask in the classes after discussions, okay, prof, what actually happened after this? Here you have to use an asterisk. So at the start of the meeting, I was having a word with Diptiman and Minakshi, so we're discussing about case method. So I think when I give that information to students, I simply say to them that this is not the ultimate solution here. The company maybe under those circumstances took this decision, right? So it's not necessary that the decision which the company actually took is the right decision. Right? Yeah. Maybe after 3 or 4 years, you may feel that they could have done it in a different manner altogether. Uh, I think with the online teaching, it's good to have worksheets wherever possible. I'm writing case study on customer lifetime value, so we are having our worksheets in that case, links to videos for the Kaineer case study. In case you go to Kaineer and you add Kaineer and SR, Kaineer BBC. So I think the problem here is, yes, we have to take permission from BBC, SR to use those case videos in our classes. But yes, in the online world, in case you have videos, it does give good information to the students. It's easy for them to read something along with the video if it is available.